silver linings. James Sullivan stood at the construction site of Highland Park Development, his weathered hands gripping the latest progress reports. At 48, his broad shoulders and muscular frame testified to decades of hands-on work in construction. The morning sun highlighted the silver threading through his dark hair, earned through years of determination and grit. "Mr. Sullivan?" A young intern approached, clutching a stack of papers. The concrete supplier called. "They're trying to adjust the delivery schedule." James's jaw tightened. "Tell them the schedule stays as is." They signed the contract. His voice carried the unmistakable authority of someone who'd fought his way up from nothing. "If they can't handle it, I'll find someone who can." The intern nodded quickly and retreated. James's reputation for uncompromising standards preceded him at Morrison Construction. He'd earned it the hard way, starting as a laborer and working his way up to project manager through sheer force of will. His mind drifted to 1987, watching his father slump at their kitchen table, bankruptcy papers scattered before him. "I trusted the wrong people, Jimmy," his father had said, voice breaking. "Never let anyone take what's yours." That lesson had carved itself into James's soul, shaping him into the man he became. At his desk, James opened his bottom drawer, revealing a small velvet box. Inside nestled a custom silver anniversary band, Thomas Wilson's masterwork. The retired jeweler had spent weeks crafting it, incorporating subtle details from Melissa's original wedding ring. 25 years, James murmured, remembering the day he'd first met Melissa Bradford. She'd been tutoring his friend in math, her artistic hands somehow making numbers dance on the page. Her brown eyes had met his across the library table, and something electric had passed between them. The phone on his desk buzzed. David Cooper's name flashed on the screen. "James, the subcontractors are pushing back on the timeline," David said, his voice tense. "Not happening," James replied, his tone brooking no argument. "They knew the terms when they signed. I don't renegotiate with people who try to change the rules halfway through. Some of the guys think we're being too harsh. Those guys didn't watch their family lose everything because someone else couldn't keep their word," James cut in. "The timeline stays." End of discussion. After hanging up, James pulled up a photo on his phone. Ashley at her UCLA white coat ceremony, beaming with pride. His daughter had inherited his determination and Melissa's intelligence, a combination that had earned her a full scholarship to medical school. "Mr. Sullivan?" His assistant poked her head in. "Mrs. Sullivan called. She wanted to confirm your reservation at Angelo's for tonight." James nodded, patting his pocket where the ring box sat. "Everything's set. Thomas helped me plan it all." He allowed himself a small smile, thinking of his neighbor's enthusiasm in crafting the perfect surprise. The day passed in a blur of meetings and site inspections. James's crews knew better than to cut corners or slack off. He'd fired people for less, earning a reputation as a ruthless but fair boss. Quality meant survival in construction, and James Sullivan didn't survive. He thrived. At home, he found Melissa in their bedroom, fussing with her hair. She wore a new navy blue dress that hugged her curves, but something about her movements seemed off, jerky, uncertain. "You look beautiful," he said, moving to kiss her cheek. She turned slightly, his lips catching the corner of her mouth instead. "The traffic might be bad," she said, checking her phone again. "Maybe we should leave early?" James watched her in the mirror, noting how she avoided his eyes. 25 years of marriage had taught him to read her moods, and something wasn't right. But tonight was special. Whatever was bothering her could wait. "I'll get changed," he said, heading to the bathroom. Behind him, he heard the soft buzz of another text message, followed by the sound of Melissa's sharp intake of breath. Chapter 2. The Message That Changed Everything. The January evening pressed against their car windows as James navigated through Denver streets. Melissa sat beside him, her hands fidgeting with her purse strap, her new dress rustling with each nervous movement. "The Broncos game has I-25 backed up," James said, taking the side streets instead. The silence between them felt wrong, heavy with unspoken words. "Maybe we should have left earlier," Melissa said, checking her phone again. The screen's blue glow illuminated her face, highlighting the tension around her mouth. James gripped the steering wheel tighter. "We'll make it. I allowed extra time. He'd planned this evening down to the minute, just like his construction projects. No room for error, no space for failure. At the red light on 17th Avenue, a buzzing sound came from under Melissa's seat. James reached down automatically, thinking he'd dropped his phone earlier. James, wait. Melissa's voice held a note of panic he'd never heard before. Too late. The screen lit up in his hand, and the message preview burned into his vision. Reserved our usual private room upstairs. Can't wait to make you scream while that idiot orders appetizers. P.S. Wearing your favorite suit. The world around him seemed to freeze. Traffic noise faded away. All he could hear was the pounding of blood in his ears and Melissa's ragged breathing beside him. Get out. His voice emerged surprisingly steady, barely above a whisper. Melissa sat frozen, her face a mask of terror. James, please, I can explain. Get out. His fist slammed against the steering wheel with enough force to make the entire car shake. Get out of the car now. She fumbled with her seatbelt, manicured fingers trembling. Snowflakes danced in the air as she stepped onto the sidewalk, her new dress offering little protection against the biting wind. James didn't spare her a glance as he accelerated away, leaving her standing alone in the gathering storm. His mind raced through the past few months, picking up signs he'd ignored. The late-night art program meetings, the new clothes, the way she'd grown distant during Ashley's Christmas visit. Ashley, God, how would he tell their daughter? She'd written her college application essay about their marriage, about the power of lasting love. Now that foundation was shattered, replaced by lies and betrayal. The phone in his hand buzzed again. Another message from the same number. Hurry up, sexy. I'm getting impatient. James's grip tightened until his knuckles whitened. He knew exactly where to go. Angelo's. Their special place. Now he knew why Melissa had insisted on that particular restaurant for their anniversary. The valet at Angelo's recognized him, starting forward with a smile that died when he saw James's expression. James tossed him the keys without a word, his stride purposeful as he entered the restaurant. Mario Rossi, the owner, stepped forward. Mr. Sullivan, your usual. The private room upstairs. James cut him off. Who's in it? Mario's face paled. He'd seen that look before, in his younger days in Chicago. It was the look of a man about to do violence. Mr. Sullivan, please. James brushed past him, taking the stairs two at a time. The private dining room door was closed, soft music drifting from behind it. He threw it open. Robert Palmer sat at the table, an expensive bottle of wine open before him. His tailored suit and perfectly styled hair spoke of wealth and privilege. He looked up with an annoyed expression that quickly turned to fear when he recognized James. Now, James, Robert raised his hands. Let's be civilized about this. Civilized? James's voice was deadly quiet. Like fucking another man's wife? Like destroying a 25-year marriage? Robert started to stand. She came to me, said she was tired of living with a control freak who cared more about his precious construction sites than her needs. The first punch caught Robert squarely in the nose, sending him stumbling backward. Wine glasses shattered as he fell against the table. Mr. Sullivan. Mario's son Tony appeared in the doorway. The police have been called, Mario finished, appearing behind his son. But it might take them some time to get here through this traffic. James barely heard them. Robert had grabbed a wine bottle, wielding it like a club. Stay back. Oh. The bottle went flying as James closed the distance. His next punch drove into Robert's solar plexus, doubling him over. The bank manager's expensive suit offered no protection against years of construction site strength. You like private rooms? James growled, grabbing Robert's collar. Like feeling special? Important? Each question was punctuated with another blow. When it was over, Robert lay curled on the floor, his nose bleeding onto his custom-made shirt. James stood over him, breathing heavily, his knuckles raw. If you ever come near my family again, James said softly, they won't find enough of you to identify. Tony stepped aside as James walked out, his phone already recording. His girlfriend worked in IT. She'd know how to make the security footage public, show everyone what kind of man Robert Palmer really was. Outside, the snow had picked up, but James didn't feel the cold. The velvet box in his pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. 25 years of trust, destroyed by messages on a phone and a usual private room. He drove home in silence, his mind already shifting from shock to calculation. There would be consequences, legal, professional, personal. But James Sullivan hadn't survived the tough times by being weak. His father's words echoed in his memory. Never let anyone take what's yours. They'd taken his marriage, his trust, his family's stability. Now he would take everything from them. Chapter 3. The Confrontation. Mario Rossi had seen his share of drama in 40 years of restaurant ownership, but this was different. As he watched James Sullivan stride into Angelo's, he recognized the controlled fury in the man's movements. It reminded him of his youth in Chicago, when certain men would enter his father's restaurant with similar purpose. "Papa." Tony touched his arm. "Should I call the police now?" Mario hesitated. He'd known about Robert Palmer's activities for months. The bank manager had been using the private room upstairs for various rendezvous, always with married women, always with the same smug satisfaction of a predator with his prey. "Call them," Mario nodded. "But perhaps mention the address unclear? These winter storms, they make navigation difficult, no?" Tony understood. His father believed in karma, in justice that sometimes needed a little time to arrive properly. Upstairs, Robert Palmer sat in his usual spot, admiring his reflection in a wine glass. The room held countless memories of conquest, each one adding to his sense of invincibility. The door burst open, and his carefully constructed world began to crumble. "Now, James," he raised his hands, the gesture both placating and condescending. "Let's be civilized about this." "Civilized?" James's voice carried the weight of betrayal. "Like fucking another man's wife? Like destroying a 25-year marriage?" Robert's practiced charm shifted to arrogance. He'd dealt with angry husbands before. They usually buckled under the weight of social propriety and fear of consequences. "She came to me, said she was tired of living with a control freak who cared more about his precious construction sites than her needs." The punch caught him by surprise. Pain exploded across his face as his nose gave way with a sickening crunch. He stumbled backward, expensive Italian shoes sliding on spilled wine as glasses shattered around him. "Mr. Sullivan." Tony's voice seemed distant. "The police have been called." Mario's accent thickened with satisfaction. "But it might take them some time to get here through this traffic." Panic replaced Robert's arrogance. He grabbed a wine bottle, brandishing it like a weapon. "Stay back." "Oh." The bottle went flying. James moved with the brutal efficiency of someone used to physical labor, each blow calculated and devastating. Robert's martial arts classes at his expensive gym hadn't prepared him for this kind of raw power. "You like private rooms?" James's voice carried death in its quietness. "Like feeling special? Important?" Each question brought fresh pain. Robert tasted blood, his vision blurring. The carefully manicured nails that had traced patterns on Melissa's skin now scrabbled uselessly against the floor. When it ended, Robert lay amid the wreckage of broken glass and his own shattered pride. James stood over him, a vision of controlled violence. "If you ever come near my family again," James's whisper carried clearly in the destroyed room, "they won't find enough of you to identify." Tony watched James leave, his phone capturing everything. His girlfriend Lisa worked in IT security. She'd know how to make the footage tell the right story. Robert Palmer's true nature deserved to be public knowledge. "Should I call an ambulance, Papa?" Tony asked, watching Robert struggle to sit up. Mario surveyed the scene with practiced eyes. "See, but first, Mr. Palmer should know his credit card will be charged for the damages, including the vintage wine." He smiled thinly. The very expensive vintage wine. Robert spat blood onto his ruined shirt. "This is assault. I'll sue." "I'll sue." Mario's laugh held no humor. "With what evidence?" "Our cameras. They sometimes malfunction. And who would believe a man who makes a habit of seducing married women in private rooms?" Tony's phone caught Robert's expression changing from anger to fear as realization set in. His carefully constructed facade had cracked, revealing the coward beneath. In the kitchen below, the staff whispered among themselves. They'd all seen Robert's type before, wealthy men who thought money bought them immunity from consequences. But James Sullivan had delivered a different kind of statement, one written in blood and broken glass. The story would spread through Denver's restaurant community by morning. Robert Palmer, the prestigious bank manager, exposed and humiliated. James Sullivan, the construction manager who defended his honor the old-fashioned way. Outside, snow continued to fall on the city, covering the streets in a blanket of white. But inside Angelo's, the night had revealed raw truths about men's characters. Some built on solid foundations, others constructed of nothing but lies. Chapter 4. Broken Pieces. News of the Angelo's incident spread through Denver's social circles like wildfire. James Sullivan sat in his home office, staring at his phone as messages poured in. He deleted them without reading. Empty words of sympathy meant nothing now. A knock at his door broke the silence. "James." David Cooper's voice carried concern. "You missed the morning meeting. The crews need direction on Highland Park. Come in." James's voice was rough from lack of sleep. David entered, taking in his friend's appearance, unshaven, dress shirt from 2 days ago wrinkled but still on. Not the meticulously put-together project manager everyone knew. The subcontractors are asking about schedule changes. Nothing changes. James cut him off, standing up. The project continues exactly as planned. I'll be on site in an hour. James, maybe you should take some time. James's fist slammed onto his desk. I'm not weak, David. I don't need time to process or heal or whatever bullshit people suggest. His eyes blazed with controlled fury. What I need is to work. The phone buzzed again. Andrea, Melissa's sister. James answered it on speaker, his jaw tight. How dare you humiliate my sister like this? Andrea's voice dripped with accusation. Leaving her on the street in the cold. How dare I? James's laugh held no humor. Tell me, Andrea, how many girls' weekends were actually cover for her meetings with Palmer? Silence crackled over the line. That's what I thought. James's voice dropped dangerously low. You helped her destroy 25 years of marriage. Remember that when you're comforting her. He hung up, turning to David. I'll handle the cruise myself today. I need to keep busy. James. David hesitated. Patricia wants you to know. She's seen this before. Her sister went through something similar. She says there's a retired detective, Mike Martinez, who runs a support group. I don't need support. James grabbed his jacket. I need everyone to do their jobs and let me do mine. At the construction site, James threw himself into work with frightening intensity. His crews worked harder than ever, sensing that any mistake would be met with zero tolerance. Sullivan, a voice called out across the site. There's someone here to see you. James turned to see a stocky man in his 60s approaching, badge glinting at his belt. Mr. Sullivan? Mike Martinez. David Cooper asked me to stop by. Not interested. James turned back to his blueprints. No? Not interested in knowing that Robert Palmer has a history? That you're not his first target? Mike's words stopped James cold. Or that my wife Rachel is the best divorce attorney in Colorado. James studied the older man's face, seeing something familiar in his eyes. The look of someone who'd been through war and came out stronger. Buy you a coffee? Mike offered. I know a place where we can talk privately. No therapy bullshit, just strategy. James considered for a moment. One coffee. That's it. At Second Chapter's bookstore cafe, Mike laid out what he knew. Palmer's got a pattern. He targets specific types of families, successful, stable, with college-age kids. Uses his position at the bank to gather information about their finances. How do you know this? I may be retired, but I keep in touch with former colleagues. Palmer's name has come up before, but no one could prove anything. Mike leaned forward. Until now. What's different now? You. Mike's eyes gleamed. Other husbands got angry, sure, but they let shame silence them. You? You exposed him. That security footage from Angelo's? It's already making rounds. James's phone buzzed. Ashley calling from UCLA. His daughter's voice was thick with tears. Dad? I knew something was wrong when I visited at Christmas. Mom was acting strange, always on her phone, making excuses to leave the room. I should have told you. This isn't your fault, Ashley. James gripped the phone tighter. None of this is on you. I can't focus on my studies. Everything feels fake now. That essay I wrote about you and Mom for my college application? What a joke. Take a break if you need to. Your education fund is separate. He can't touch that. After hanging up, James looked at Mike. Palmer didn't just destroy my marriage. He hurt my daughter. Mike nodded grimly. Then let's make sure he never hurts another family. Rachel, my wife. She's got contacts on the state banking board. We start pulling threads. This whole thing unravels. I want more than an unraveling. James's voice hardened. I want destruction. Complete and absolute. Then you'll need allies. My poker group, they're all men who've been through similar betrayals. They've rebuilt their lives, stronger than before. Some of them are in positions of influence now. I don't need emotional support. No. Mike raised an eyebrow. What about business connections? Legal advice? Inside information about banking regulations? Before James could respond, his phone buzzed with a text from David Cooper. Patricia just posted the Angelo's security footage on her social media. It's going viral. Palmer's trying to spin it as assault, but the footage shows him grabbing the wine bottle first. People are starting to ask questions about his other private dining sessions. Mike smiled grimly. Looks like the destruction's already beginning. Question is, you want it to be random chaos or a controlled demolition? James thought of his construction projects, how careful planning could bring down even the strongest structures. Tell me more about these poker games. The next few weeks revealed the depth of the betrayal. James discovered that Andrea hadn't just covered for Melissa's girls' weekends. She'd actively encouraged the affair, telling her sister she deserved excitement after years of James's rigid control. Patricia Cooper emerged as an unexpected ally. Her social media following ate up the story of the predatory banker exposed. Each post drew out more witnesses to Palmer's pattern of behavior. You should see the comments, Patricia told James over coffee at Second Chapters. Other women are coming forward. He used the same tactics on all of them, scheduling financial planning meetings that turned personal, using information about their children's college funds as leverage. James nodded, his expression stone. Keep gathering their stories. We'll need them. The construction site became his sanctuary. He worked longer hours than ever, pushing his crews to new levels of excellence. Some whispered he'd gone crazy after the divorce, but they couldn't argue with the results. Highland Park was ahead of schedule and under budget. One evening, as James reviewed project reports in his office, Mike Martinez appeared with a thick folder. Remember how I said Palmer had a pattern? Mike dropped the folder on James's desk. Rachel's friend on the banking board did some digging. Turns out our friend Robert has been using client information in ways that violate about a dozen regulations. James opened the folder, scanning the documents. How did you get these? Legally. Mike grinned. Rachel's good at her job. Question is, what do you want to do with them? James thought of Ashley, struggling with her studies, her faith in family shattered. He thought of the other families Palmer had targeted, of the lives he disrupted for his own gratification. I want him destroyed, James said simply, not just professionally. I want him to lose everything, just like he made others lose everything. Mike nodded, understanding in his eyes. Then let's play this smart. No more fists. We hit him where it really hurts. His reputation, his career, his money. James stood, looking out at his construction site. He'd built his life through careful planning and relentless execution. Now he'd use those same skills to tear down the man who destroyed his family. Time to begin, he said, turning back to Mike. Show me where to start. Chapter 5. The plan takes shape. The poker room at Second Chapters buzzed with controlled energy. James sat at the table, studying his new allies, successful men who transformed pain into power. Mike Martinez dealt cards with practiced efficiency while explaining their latest discovery. Rachel's contact at the banking board came through. Mike's voice was low, meant only for their circle. Palmer's been using his position to access personal information about families with college-age kids. He profiles them, identifies vulnerabilities. Tom Chun, a software executive, nodded grimly. Classic predator behavior. He used my daughter's Stanford acceptance as an opening. Offered exclusive investment opportunities to help with tuition. Same pattern with my family, Marcus Rodriguez added, pushing chips into the pot. Only I caught on before he could close the deal. My wife admitted he'd been asking questions about our finances during chanced meetings at school functions. James absorbed the information, his mind calculating possibilities like he would a complex construction project. We need more than patterns. We need proof. That's where I come in. Catherine Palmer's voice made them all turn. Robert's ex-wife stood in the doorway, elegant despite obvious tension. Sorry to interrupt boys' night, but this couldn't wait. Rachel Martinez appeared behind her. Catherine brought something you need to see, James. Catherine placed a worn leather ledger on the table. Robert's real financial records. Not the ones he shows the bank, the ones he keeps for his gambling debts. Her hands trembled slightly. I found it when I was packing to leave him. Kept it as insurance. James opened the ledger, recognizing the neat columns of numbers. He's tracking payments and losses to some very dangerous people. Catherine's voice hardened. He wasn't just seducing wealthy wives for ego. He needed their money, their family's money, to cover his tracks. Jesus, Mike breathed, looking over James's shoulder. These amounts. That's not all. Catherine pulled out her phone, showing them emails. He's been using the same private room at Angelo's for years. Turns out he kept records of his conquests, photos, messages, details about their family's finances. He used them as leverage if anyone threatened to expose him. James's hands clenched into fists. Melissa, our anniversary savings. Let me guess, he convinced her to invest it in something special? Catherine's laugh was bitter. Classic Robert. He needed fresh cash to pay off his latest losses. The poker game forgotten, they gathered around the ledger. Rachel pointed out specific entries. These dates coincide with complaints filed at the bank. Each time, the complaints mysteriously disappeared. He had protection, Mike growled. Someone higher up covering for him. Had, Catherine emphasized. Past tense. The Angelo's video changed everything. His protectors are getting nervous, starting to distance themselves. James stood, pacing the room like he did at construction sites when solving complex problems. We need to coordinate this carefully. Hit him from all angles at once. Already started. Rachel smiled grimly. I've prepared a detailed report for the banking board. Anonymous, of course, but thoroughly documented. Catherine's ledger provides the financial proof we needed. Patricia's been gathering stories, Tom added. Other families Palmer targeted. She's building a timeline, showing his pattern of predatory behavior. But we have to move fast, Marcus warned. He's getting desperate. My contacts in the banking industry say he's been liquidating assets, making unusual transfers. James nodded, the plan forming in his mind. Mike, you said Palmer has gambling debts? To dangerous people? Very dangerous, Catherine confirmed. One reason I left, I found threats in his email. They were losing patience. Good. James's smile held no warmth. Let's make sure they know their pet banker is about to lose his ability to pay. James. Rachel's voice held warning. We need to be careful here. Everything we do has to be legal. Trust me. James's eyes glinted. I learned from construction. The best demolitions look completely natural. The group worked late into the night, piecing together their strategy. Tom would trace Palmer's digital footprint, documenting his misuse of client information. Marcus would quietly spread word through banking circles about the coming storm. Rachel would ensure the legal framework was airtight. As they worked, James's phone buzzed. A text from Melissa. James, please. We need to talk. Robert's been acting strange, making demands about money. He showed the message to Catherine, who nodded knowingly. He's panicking. Probably told her to get more money from you. Should I respond? James asked the group. Mike shook his head. Let her sweat. When Palmer's world crashes down, she'll understand her part in it. Speaking of understanding, Rachel interjected. Ashley called earlier. She's thinking of starting a support group at UCLA for children of infidelity. Wants to turn her pain into something positive. Pride mixed with pain in James's chest. She's stronger than both her parents. She gets that from you, Mike said quietly. The strength to rebuild rather than just survive. The next day, James threw himself into work with renewed purpose. The Highland Park project demanded attention, but his mind kept returning to their plans. During his lunch break, he enrolled in evening business classes at the local community college. Why now? David Cooper asked when James mentioned his classes. Because knowledge is power, James replied simply. And I need more power. The construction site hummed with activity around them. James watched his crews working, each person playing their part in creating something larger than themselves. Just like his new allies, each bringing their skills to destroy a common enemy. His phone buzzed again. Patricia Cooper this time. You need to see this. Palmer's trying to damage control, but he's making it worse. Check your email. The email contained links to social media discussions about the Angelos incident. Palmer had tried to paint himself as the victim, but his story kept changing. More importantly, other women were commenting, sharing similar experiences. He's digging his own grave, James muttered. That's not all, Patricia wrote. Remember that mother from his daughter's school? The one he targeted last year? She's a financial auditor. Says she's been reviewing his publicly available banking records and found irregularities. James smiled grimly. The pieces were falling into place faster than expected. Soon, Robert Palmer would learn what happens when you build your life on lies. It all comes crashing down. Chapter 6. The Pieces Move. The morning sun painted Highland Park development in shades of promise as James surveyed his crews. Morrison Construction's owner had visited yesterday, impressed by both the project's progress and James's evening business classes. Most men would crumble under personal crisis, the owner had said. You're turning it into opportunity for growth. That's the kind of thinking we need in our leadership. Now, watching concrete pour for the final section, James checked his phone. 3 messages waited. From Mike. Banking board received our anonymous report. Emergency meeting scheduled. From Rachel. Palmer's trying to move assets offshore. Too late. Accounts already flagged. From Catherine. He's selling his mountain house. Below market value. Desperate for cash. James allowed himself a small smile. The demolition was proceeding exactly as planned. His phone rang. Ashley calling from UCLA. Dad? Something weird happened. Mom called, asking if I could loan her money from my education fund. Said it was for an investment opportunity. James's grip tightened on his phone. What did you tell her? That she lost the right to ask me for anything when she destroyed our family. Ashley's voice trembled with anger. Dad, I started that support group we talked about. You wouldn't believe how many students have similar stories. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. You're turning pain into purpose, like you taught me. Oh, the group wants to do a podcast episode about infidelity's impact on families. Anonymously, of course. Would you? Would you share your perspective? James considered the strategic value. Send me the questions. I'll think about it. After hanging up, he received another message, this time from Thomas Wilson. James, Melissa came by. Tried to sell her anniversary ring, the original one. Said she needed cash urgently. I stalled her, said I'd need time to appraise it. The pieces were moving faster now. James dialed Mike's number. Palmer's panicking, he said without preamble. Trying to liquidate assets, asking Melissa to get money from anywhere she can. Perfect timing, Mike replied. Rachel's contact says the banking board investigation is expanding. They're looking at all his client accounts now. How long until it hits? Days. Maybe hours. His colleagues are already distancing themselves. Patricia's social media campaign has everyone asking questions about his private investment advice to clients. James hung up and checked his email. Rachel had forwarded documentation showing Palmer's desperate attempts to access additional credit lines. Each rejection cited pending investigation as the reason. His phone buzzed again. A text from Melissa. James, please. I made a terrible mistake. I need help. Robert convinced me to invest our anniversary savings in something that wasn't real. He says if I don't get more money. He let the message hang unanswered. Through his construction site office window, he watched his crews working with precision and purpose. Each person knowing their role, each action building toward the final result. Just like his plan for Palmer. David Cooper appeared at his door. James? Got a minute? Come in. Patricia's latest post just went viral. 3 more women have come forward. All clients' wives, all with similar stories about private investment opportunities. David paused. Palmer's trying to deny everything. But the evidence is too strong, James finished. How's the local business community reacting? They're running scared. Nobody wants to be associated with him now. The country club just suspended his membership pending investigation. James nodded. Palmer's carefully constructed social world was crumbling, brick by brick. Any word from the bank? Internal audit team arrived this morning. Surprise inspection. David smiled grimly. Funny timing that. The next hours brought a cascade of updates. Mike, Palmer's gambling contacts are asking questions. They don't like their cash cow being investigated. Rachel, banking board subpoenaed his records. All his records. Catherine, he's calling in favors, but no one's answering. They smell blood in the water. Then came the message James had been waiting for. Melissa, desperate. Robert's showing his true colors. He says if I don't find a way to get more money, he'll reveal everything about our relationship. Says he has pictures, messages. James, what have I done? He showed the message to Mike during their evening strategy session. Classic Palmer. Mike growled. Always keeps blackmail material. Makes him feel powerful. But this time, Rachel added, reviewing case notes, he threatened the wrong person. We can add extortion to the growing list of charges. James stared at his phone, at Melissa's desperate message. 25 years of marriage, destroyed for a man who saw her as just another mark in his scheme. What's our next move? Tomchin asked, looking up from his laptop where he'd been tracking Palmer's digital footprint. We wait, James said simply. All the pieces are in place. Palmer's gambling debts, his misuse of client information, his blackmail attempts, it's all documented. Now we watch it come down. Marcus Rodriguez nodded approvingly. Like demolishing a building. Once you've placed the charges correctly, gravity does the work. James's phone lit up with a final message from Ashley. Dad, the podcast episode about infidelity's impact on families just went live. Still anonymous, but people are listening. They're sharing their own stories. Maybe some good can come from all this pain. He looked around the room at his allies. Mike's tactical wisdom, Rachel's legal expertise, Catherine's insider knowledge, Patricia's social media influence. Each playing their part in dismantling Robert Palmer's carefully constructed facade. To Ashley, Mike raised his glass. For reminding us why this matters. James nodded, thinking of his daughter turning trauma into purpose. Palmer hadn't just betrayed a marriage. He'd betrayed a family's trust, a daughter's faith in love itself. That debt would be paid in full. The group worked late into the night, monitoring their various channels of information. Palmer's world was collapsing in real time. Financial, professional, social. His victims were finding their voices, his protectors abandoning him, his carefully hidden secrets exposed to light. James stood at the window, watching Denver's lights below. He thought of his father's words from long ago. Never let anyone take what's yours. Palmer had taken his marriage, his trust, his daughter's innocence about love. Now James had taken something far more valuable to Palmer, his carefully constructed illusion of power. His phone buzzed one final time that night. Robert Palmer himself, number blocked but message clear. Sullivan, we should talk. This doesn't have to get uglier. James deleted the message without responding. Palmer still didn't understand. This wasn't a negotiation. This was demolition, and the building was already falling. Chapter 7. The House of Cards Falls. The Rocky Mountain Bank boardroom buzzed with tension. Robert Palmer sat at the conference table, his usual confident demeanor cracking under the weight of scrutiny. The surprise audit team had arrived without warning, armed with anonymous tips and damning documentation. Mr. Palmer, the lead auditor's voice cut through the silence. Would you care to explain these irregular transactions in the Thompson family's college fund account? Robert tugged at his collar, now too tight around his neck. Those were authorized investments. By whom? Another board member pushed forward a stack of papers. We have no record of proper authorization forms. His phone vibrated, another message from his gambling contacts. They'd seen the news about the audit. They wanted their money, and they wanted it now. Across town, James Sullivan stood at the Highland Park construction site, watching his crews work with precision. His phone buzzed with updates from his allies. Bank board meeting in progress. Palmer's sweating bullets. Rachel Martinez. 3 more families have come forward about unauthorized investment advice. Patricia Cooper. Your daughter's podcast is trending. People are connecting dots. Mike Martinez. James allowed himself a small smile. He'd learned from construction that the most devastating collapses came from attacking the foundation. Palmer's foundation was built on lies, and now those lies were being exposed one by one. His assistant approached with more news. Mr. Sullivan? Morrison Construction's owner wants to see you. Something about the downtown revitalization project bid. In the owner's office, James laid out his analysis. Their proposal assumes stable soil conditions, but I checked the geological surveys. The area has unknown mine shafts from the 1800s. Their cost estimates are off by millions. The owner studied him with newfound respect. Those business classes are paying off. How'd you catch this? I don't leave things to chance anymore. James's voice carried the hard-earned wisdom of betrayal. Not in construction, not in life. His phone buzzed again. Ashley calling from UCLA. Dad? A parent from mom's school recognized my voice from the podcast. The story's spreading through their community. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Ashley's voice strengthened. People need to know how infidelity destroys more than just marriages. My support group is growing. We're helping others heal. Back at Rocky Mountain Bank, the board meeting had devolved into chaos. Robert's attempts to explain away his actions only dug him deeper. These private investment sessions with clients' wives, a board member held up printed emails, all conducted in the same restaurant's private room. Care to explain? Robert's face paled. That's personal. Nothing's personal when you use bank resources to facilitate it. The lead auditor pointed to specific transactions. You accessed confidential financial information to target vulnerable families. That's a criminal offense. His phone buzzed again. Melissa, desperate. Robert's threatening to release pictures. Says it's my fault the bank's investigating him. What do I do? He ignored it. Let her face the consequences of her choices. At the construction site, James received another update from Mike. Palmer's creditors are circling. They don't like their investment threatened by legal troubles. James nodded grimly. All the pieces were falling exactly as planned. Palmer had built his life on exploiting others' trust. Now that trust was gone, and his carefully constructed world was crumbling. The bank board's decision was unanimous. Robert Palmer was suspended pending criminal investigation. Security escorted him from the building, his personal items in a box, his professional reputation in tatters. As he stumbled to his car, his phone buzzed with messages from angry creditors, betrayed clients, and Melissa, each demanding answers he couldn't provide. Inside the bank, Catherine Palmer watched her ex-husband's disgrace with grim satisfaction. The evidence I provided, she told the board, is just the beginning. Wait until you see his private accounts. News of Palmer's suspension spread through Denver's business community like wildfire. James received the update during a meeting about the downtown revitalization project. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, David Cooper commented, showing James the news on his phone. This is just the start, James replied, his voice cold with certainty. By the time we're done, he'll wish all he'd lost was his job. At UCLA, Ashley's support group gathered for their weekly meeting. My mother's school found out about the podcast, she told them. They're questioning whether someone with her history should be teaching children. The group nodded in understanding. They'd all seen how infidelity's ripples destroyed not just marriages, but careers, reputations, entire futures. Your father? One member asked. How's he handling it? Ashley smiled grimly. Dad doesn't handle things. He demolishes them. Chapter 8. Justice Served Cold. Robert Palmer's mountain vacation home, his pride and joy, went on the market at a desperate discount. The realtor's phone buzzed constantly with lowball offers, vultures sensing weakness. Mr. Palmer, she said, watching him pace the luxury kitchen, we need to be realistic about the price. Your situation. My situation is temporary, he snapped, but his voice lacked conviction. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing with demands from creditors. The latest message made him sink into a designer chair. Court approved Catherine's request to reopen the divorce settlement due to new evidence of financial misconduct. Outside, a black SUV parked across the street. One of his gambling creditors, sending a message. They knew he was vulnerable now. James Sullivan received the updates during his morning project meeting at Highland Park. Rachel Martinez's message brought a cold smile to his face. Catherine's lawyers found evidence of hidden assets during their marriage. Judge is very interested. Mr. Sullivan? His assistant interrupted. Morrison Construction's board wants to meet. They're impressed with your work on the downtown project bid. In the boardroom, James laid out his vision with the confidence of a man who'd rebuilt himself from betrayal. The Highland Park project is ahead of schedule and under budget. The downtown revitalization contract could transform this company's future. The board members exchanged looks. This wasn't the same project manager they'd known before. This man had an edge, a ruthless efficiency that commanded respect. We're considering offering you a partnership position, the chairman said. Your recent business classes, your attention to detail. I understand value, James cut in, and I understand how quickly it can be lost if you trust the wrong people. His phone buzzed. Mike Martinez with more updates. Palmer's creditors are getting aggressive. They've got people watching his house. Good, James thought. Let him feel hunted. At the bank, the audit team's findings painted a damning picture. Robert had used his position to access private financial information about wealthy families, specifically targeting those with college-age children. The pattern is clear, the lead investigator told the board. He used knowledge of their financial situations to manipulate both his victims and their spouses. Catherine Palmer sat in her lawyer's office, reviewing the mounting evidence. He hid assets during our divorce, she said, her voice hard with remembered betrayal. Now he'll pay for it. The judge seems inclined to agree, her lawyer smiled. Especially given the new evidence of his gambling debts. Robert's attempts to salvage his reputation backfired spectacularly. His calls to former clients went unanswered. Country club memberships were revoked. Social invitations dried up. Worse, his creditors were losing patience. The threatening messages became more explicit. You promised returns? We want our money. Now. He tried selling his car collection, but buyers smelled desperation. Each offer came in lower than the last. James tracked Palmer's downfall with the same precision he used for construction projects. Each piece of bad news was another support beam removed, bringing the whole structure closer to collapse. At the construction site, David Cooper approached with news. Patricia's latest social media post about Palmer went viral. More victims coming forward. James nodded. Keep spreading the truth. Let everyone see what he really is. His phone buzzed. Ashley updating him on the podcast's impact. Dad, a publisher reached out. They want to turn our anonymous stories into a book about infidelity's impact on families. Your mother's school board found out? Yes. They're holding a special meeting about her position. In her classroom, Melissa faced the consequences of her choices. Parents who'd once praised her art program now avoided eye contact. The school board's message was clear. Her services would not be required next term. She tried calling Robert, but his number was disconnected. The man who'd promised her excitement and passion had vanished, leaving her to face the ruins of her life alone. Catherine's additional lawsuits hit Robert like body blows. Each filing revealed more financial misconduct, more hidden assets, more lies. You can't prove anything, he blustered in court, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge's ruling was devastating. Given the new evidence of deliberate financial deception during the original divorce proceedings, the court finds in favor of Mrs. Palmer's request for additional compensation. Robert's mountain house sold for a fraction of its value. His creditors claimed most of the proceeds, leaving him with nothing but debts and broken promises. James received the news during a partnership meeting at Morrison Construction. His phone lit up with messages from his allies. Palmer's assets frozen by court order. Rachel. Creditors seized his car collection. Mike. His attempt to write a tell-all book failed. Publishers checked his background. Patricia. The partnership offer came with a significant ownership stake. James accepted with the same ruthless focus he'd shown in destroying Palmer's world. Your handling of the Highland Park project impressed us, the the board chairman said. We need that kind of leadership. James thought of his father's lessons about trust and betrayal. Leadership means protecting what's valuable and destroying threats to that value. His phone buzzed one final time that day. Ashley sending a photo of her support group. We're healing, Dad, and helping others heal too. He smiled, feeling a father's pride mixed with justified vengeance. Palmer hadn't just destroyed a marriage. He'd attacked a family. Now he was paying the price, piece by piece, dream by dream. Chapter 9. New Beginnings. 2 years passed like water flowing under the foundations of James's latest construction project. Highland Park's success had earned regional awards, establishing him as a rising force in Colorado's construction industry. The second chapter's bookstore cafe had become his sanctuary, hosting weekly poker games with the men who'd helped orchestrate Palmer's downfall. Mike Martinez dealt cards with the same precision he'd once used to gather evidence. King high, Mike announced, showing his hand. Speaking of kings falling, heard Palmer's selling used cars in Colorado Springs now. James allowed himself a small smile. Appropriate. A liar selling lies. Claire Anderson, the bookstore's owner, approached their table with fresh coffee. Her green eyes held understanding earned through her own journey of loss and rebuilding. Your usual gentleman? Her voice carried warmth that had nothing to do with coffee. James looked up, seeing in her face the same resilience he'd found in himself. She'd rebuilt her life after losing her husband to cancer, turning grief into purpose with her bookstore. Join us, he offered, pulling out a chair. Their relationship had developed naturally, built on shared experiences of loss and renewal. No false promises, no hidden agendas, just honest communication and mutual respect. His phone buzzed, Ashley calling with news about her medical school graduation. Dad, I got my final results. Top of the class. Never doubted you, sweetheart. The support group's going strong. We're helping so many people understand they're not alone. She paused. Mom sent another letter. Same drawer as the others? Yes. Ashley's voice held no regret. Some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness. James looked around the poker table at his chosen family. Mike and Rachel Martinez, whose expertise had helped dismantle Palmer's world. Thomas Wilson and his wife, who'd stood by him through the darkest days. Claire caught his eye, understanding passing between them without words. They'd both learned that sometimes life's worst blows led to unexpected blessings. Dad, Ashley's voice drew him back. Patricia sent me an interesting update. Remember Palmer's attempt at a tell-all book? The one no publisher would touch? Exactly. Turns out his exclusive revelations were as fake as everything else about him. Publishers fact-checked his claims and found nothing but lies. James nodded, unsurprised. Palmer's entire life had been built on deception. Now he was reduced to selling used cars, his dreams of redemption through literature as hollow as his promises to Melissa. Speaking of Melissa, her move to Arizona had been inevitable once the school board dismissed her. Her after-school art program, built over 15 years, was now run by a younger teacher who quickly earned the trust she'd lost. Her letters of apology arrived monthly, each one joining its predecessors unopened in their desk drawers. James and Ashley had learned that some wounds didn't need closure, they needed distance. Claire topped off their coffee cups, her presence a reminder that life moved forward. Her bookstore had become more than just a meeting place for his poker group. It was a symbol of renewal, of second chances earned through honesty. You know what they say about silver linings? She asked, her hand finding his under the table. James watched Ashley laugh at one of Mike's terrible jokes, saw the strength in his daughter's smile. That they're actually gold when you find the right ones? Exactly, Claire replied, raising her cup. To second chances. The group echoed the toast, their voices filling the room with warmth. Through the window, Denver's lights sparkled against the night sky. James Sullivan had learned that even the darkest nights gave way to dawn, but only for those strong enough to survive them. He'd survived. More than that, he triumphed. His construction empire grew, built on the same principles that had seen him through betrayal: strength, precision, and zero tolerance for weakness. Palmer's fall from grace had become a cautionary tale in banking circles. His gambling debts, his predatory behavior, his financial crimes, all exposed and punished. Justice served cold, but served completely. And James? He'd rebuilt more than his life. He'd created something stronger, more resilient. A partnership at Morrison Construction. A relationship built on truth with Claire. A deeper bond with Ashley. Some men might have broken under the weight of betrayal. James Sullivan had used it as foundation stone, building a new life that no one could shake. "Your bet," Mike reminded him, tapping the poker table. James looked at his cards, then at his family, the one he'd chosen, the one he'd built from the ashes of betrayal. "All in," he said simply, and meant more than just the poker game. Epilogue. A decade later, the Highland Park Community Center buzzed with activity as James Sullivan cut the ribbon at its grand opening. At 58, his hair had turned completely silver, but his build remained as solid as his reputation in Colorado's construction industry. Morrison Sullivan Construction, as it was now known, had become one of Denver's most respected firms. "Mr. Sullivan," a young reporter stepped forward. "This center was built on the same site where your company completed the Highland Park development 10 years ago. What made you decide to add this facility?" James's eyes swept over the building, noting its perfect lines and solid foundation. Communities need strong foundations. Just like buildings. The crowd included faces both old and new. Mike Martinez, now fully retired but still sharp as ever, stood with his wife Rachel, whose law firm had become the go-to choice for corporate litigation in Denver. Their contribution to Robert Palmer's downfall had cemented their reputation for handling complex cases. "Remember when we used to meet for poker games?" Mike murmured to James as they toured the facility. "Now look at us, pillars of the community." James nodded, remembering those early strategy sessions that had helped him rebuild his life. "Speaking of poker games, heard anything about Palmer lately?" Mike's grin held no warmth. "Still selling used cars in Colorado Springs. Tried to get back into banking last month. Got laughed out of the interview when they Googled his name. Claire Sullivan." She'd taken James's name 5 years ago, approached with their 4-year-old granddaughter Emma in tow. Ashley's first child had her mother's intelligence and her grandfather's determination. "Papa." Emma ran to James, who scooped her up effortlessly. "Mommy's doing her TV talk again." On a nearby screen, Ashley Sullivan Martinez appeared via satellite link. Now a renowned family therapist, she'd parlayed her support group experience into a successful practice and regular television appearances discussing the impact of infidelity on families. "The children of unfaithful parents often carry deep scars," Ashley was saying, "but with proper support, they can transform that pain into strength." The interview's topic was her latest book, Breaking the Chain, Healing the Next Generation. It had spent 6 months on the bestseller list, its success driven by Ashley's honest exploration of her own experience. Patricia Cooper, whose social media influence had helped expose Palmer's crimes, now ran a successful PR firm specializing in crisis management. She turned her experience with the Palmer scandal into a template for handling complex social media situations. "James." Patricia waved from across the room, her phone perpetually in hand. "You won't believe who just walked into my office last week." Catherine Palmer. Catherine had reinvented herself after her additional lawsuits against Robert. Using her settlement money, she'd started a foundation helping women rebuild their lives after divorce. The organization specialized in identifying hidden assets and financial manipulation. "How is she?" James asked, though he already knew. Catherine's foundation had partnered with Ashley's therapy practice, creating a comprehensive support system for families affected by infidelity. "Thriving," Patricia smiled. "Her foundation just opened its 5th office. She's turning Robert's betrayal into a force for good." Thomas Wilson, now in his 70s but still creating custom jewelry, arrived with his wife. They'd remained close friends with James and Claire, their bond strengthened by years of support through life's changes. "Remember that anniversary ring I made?" Thomas asked quietly. "The one you never got to give her?" James nodded. The ring had been donated to Catherine's foundation, melted down to create symbolic survival tokens for women rebuilding their lives after betrayal. David Cooper approached, now a senior partner at Morrison Sullivan Construction. "James, the city council's here. They want to discuss the Downtown Heritage Project." The Heritage Project was James's most ambitious yet, a complete restoration of Denver's historic district, combining preservation with modern sustainability. His business classes from years ago had evolved into an MBA, giving him the expertise to handle projects of this scale. "How's the preliminary survey going?" James asked, shifting into business mode. "Clean so far. No surprises like those mine shafts we caught in the competitor's proposal 10 years ago." David grinned. "That catch made your career." James's phone buzzed, a news alert about Robert Palmer. His latest attempt at redemption, a self-published memoir titled The Truth Behind the Lies, had flopped spectacularly. The few reviews mentioned its obvious attempts to rewrite history and paint himself as the victim. "Still trying to spin his story," Mike commented, reading over James's shoulder. "Some people never learn." Claire squeezed James's hand. "Speaking of learning, did you hear about Melissa?" James raised an eyebrow. His ex-wife's name rarely came up these days. "She's still in Arizona," Claire continued, "teaching art to seniors now. Ashley saw her last month when she was there for a conference." "How'd that go?" "Civil, from what Ashley said. Melissa's aged a lot." "The guilt, probably." Claire paused. She asked about Emma. James's jaw tightened. Ashley's decision if she wants her mother in Emma's life. The subject of Melissa remained a closed book. Her monthly letters had finally stopped 2 years ago, the last one as unopened as the first. Some betrayals, as James had taught Ashley, didn't deserve forgiveness. They deserved to be lessons. Tony Rossi, who'd taken over Angelo's from his father Mario, arrived with a catering team. The restaurant had thrived after the Palmer incident, its reputation for discretion ironically enhanced by how they'd handled the situation. "Mr. Sullivan," Tony greeted him warmly. "The private dining room upstairs is ready for your group." James nodded, appreciating the symmetry. The room where his marriage had ended would host a celebration of his new life success. Rachel Martinez joined them, legal briefcase still in hand. "Just finished a case you might find interesting, James." Another banker trying Palmer's old tricks, using client information to target vulnerable families. "How'd it end?" "The way you'd expect." Rachel smiled grimly. "We used Palmer's case as precedent." Judge threw the book at him. The community center filled with more familiar faces. The poker group members who'd helped strategize Palmer's downfall had remained close, their weekly games now held in the private room above Second Chapter's bookstore. Claire's business had expanded to 3 locations across Denver. Emma tugged at James's sleeve. "Papa, tell me the story about how you met Grandma Claire." James smiled at his granddaughter. She'd heard the story countless times but never tired of it. "Well, it started at her bookstore. After you punched the bad man." Emma interjected, earning a laugh from the adults nearby. "Emma." Ashley's voice held amusement as she joined them, having finished her TV interview. "What did we say about that part of the story?" "That it's complicated grown-up stuff, and Papa did what he had to do to protect his family," Emma recited dutifully. James hugged his daughter. Ashley had grown into a powerful advocate for family healing, her own experience informing her work. Her marriage to Carlos Martinez, Mike and Rachel's nephew, had given her the stable, honest partnership she'd learned to value. "How's the new support center coming along?" James asked. Ashley beamed. "We're opening next month. Catherine's foundation is providing the financial literacy programs, and my team's handling the therapeutic side. The center would be the first of its kind, a comprehensive facility helping families rebuild after infidelity and financial betrayal. Its creation was the final transformation of their family's pain into purpose." Claire gathered everyone for a photo in front of the community center's entrance. James stood surrounded by his chosen family, Claire's steady presence beside him, Ashley and Emma in front, Mike and Rachel, Thomas and his wife, Patricia, David, and all the others who'd helped him rebuild. Later, in the private dining room at Angelo's, James raised a glass to the group. 10 years ago, we sat in this room plotting justice. Today, we're celebrating creation instead of destruction. To justice served cold, Mike offered. To healing turned to helping, Ashley added. To second chances made golden, Claire finished, squeezing James's hand. James looked around the table, seeing not the ruins of his past but the strength of his present. Palmer's betrayal had cost him a marriage built on lies but had given him something far more valuable. A life built on truth, strength, and unwavering principles. Emma dozed in her mother's arms, the next generation already learning the family's most important lessons. Trust must be earned, strength comes from facing betrayal, and true family is built on actions rather than blood. Outside, Denver's skyline bore James's mark the buildings he'd created, projects he'd overseen, a legacy of solid foundations and uncompromising standards. Morrison Sullivan Construction's latest project would break ground next month, adding another chapter to the city's growth. His phone buzzed one final time that evening. A message from Catherine Palmer. Foundation just helped our 1,000th family. Thought you'd want to know. None of this would have happened if you hadn't exposed Robert that night. James typed a simple reply. Justice serves its own purpose. Looking around the room at his family, the one he'd chosen, built, and strengthened through adversity, James Sullivan knew he'd created something Palmer could never destroy. His legacy wasn't just in Denver's skyline or his company's success, but in the lives he'd touched, the standards he'd upheld, and the unshakable foundation he'd built for future generations. The ring box from that fateful night sat in Catherine's foundation office, a reminder of endings and beginnings. The silver that was meant to celebrate a false marriage had been transformed into symbols of survival and renewal, just as James had transformed betrayal into strength, pain into purpose, and loss into legacy. Emma stirred in her sleep, reaching for her grandfather. James lifted her gently, feeling the weight of future generations in his arms. She would grow up knowing not the story of how betrayal destroyed their family, but how it had forged them into something stronger. Papa, she murmured sleepily, are you still the strongest builder in Denver? James smiled, catching Claire's knowing look. No, sweetheart. I just build on the strongest foundations. The private room at Angelo's, once the scene of confrontation and destruction, now held the warmth of family celebration. The same walls that had witnessed the end of James's old life now echoed with the joy of his new one. Proof that even the darkest spaces could be rebuilt into something bright. Denver's lights sparkled beyond the windows, each building a testament to the power of solid foundations and unwavering principles. James Sullivan had learned that life, like construction, wasn't about what got destroyed. It was about what you built in its place. And he had built something indestructible. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.